Welcome into the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com for Saturday, September 23rd. I'm Tom Leach, along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's Director of Mutuals and Simulcasting. We're going to take a look at the Pennsylvania Derby card. Two grade ones, one for the girls, one for the boys, and there is an all-stakes pick four that we will handicap. But, Jim, we're going to just go through the stakes races to begin with, and we'll start in the 8th. It's the ungraded Pennsylvania Derby Champion Stakes for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile and a 16th. I thought a pretty well-matched group. Did you land on anybody in particular here?
I'm glad they changed the pick four. They just changed it on Thursday, looking at making it all stakes instead of the last race, which was not really a great race. So this
they made the right move.
All stakes pick four. They did, and they just sent it out. So make sure you on your Keeneland Select or at your OTB, make sure you do it in the 8th race and not the 9th. You'll miss the pick four. So the 8th race, I can narrow it down to 3 horses, actually. I like Donegal Moon for Todd Fletcher. Has a win over the track at Parx. Really nice tune-up at Saratoga at a mile and an 8th last time out, cutting back to mile and a 16th. Ought to suit the distance well, and Castellano rides back. I just like Donegal Moon with a little bit of back class and the fact that he does have a win over the track. Just Call Kenny, the 9 horse, finished right with him, right behind Sharp Azteca in the Monmouth Cup a couple races back. Then Just Call Kenny came back and won the Iceland at Monmouth 4 lengths. So that's my 2 top picks, Donegal Moon and Just Call Kenny. Not going to get a great price there. I'm going to throw in Mr. Jordan in my pick 4 for Ed Plessa. Got beat in that last race by Just Call Kenny, and I don't really think he had excuses, but he might get a little bit better race flow this time and might control the pace a little better. And he is 2 for 3 at Parx. So Parx is a kind of a tricky racetrack, and a lot of times the rail is dead. It's a jockey's racetrack, and Frankie Pennington knows it very well. So I'm going to throw in Mr. Jordan, Just Call Kenny, and Donegal Moon are my 3 picks, with Donegal Moon probably being my win pick for 2 horses.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same path you are, and I like the Donegal Moon's won over the track before. I think you make a good point about the kind of the quirky nature of that track sometimes, and you have to kind of pay attention to the early races to see if sometimes the outside is the best place to be there, I think. I'm going to add 2 more horses. Matt King Cole, I just like his speed, coming off a bit of a layoff for Linda Rice, but she's a pretty sharp shipper. And then Paige McKinney, an old class horse, I'm going to throw in there as well, just in case we see his best day, which could be good enough. So I'm going to use the 3 you mentioned, plus Matt King Cole and Paige McKinney when we get to the pick 4. Donegal Moon would also be my win pick in here. In fact, I might even just do a 5-horse exacta box on those 5, because I think you could get a decent price on what the exacta would pay in there. 9th race is the Grade 3 Gallant Bob, and sometimes we've seen horses come out of this race and run big at the Breeders' Cup in the sprint, so you want to pay attention to this race. I ended up going to Ann Arbor Eddie for Doug O'Neill. He's shipping back across country for the 2nd time, and that intrigues me for O'Neill to do that. This horse had trouble in his race at Saratoga. They tried blinkers, so they're giving up on the blinkers. And the fact that he's bringing him back across country suggests to me that they think pretty highly of him. So I'm going to give him another shot here. Petroff cold front entries, very tough. I thought Petroff was real impressive in his win at Saratoga. Excitations ran big in his race at Saratoga. I'm not as high on American Pastime, but I would consider adding him as well. I'm not going to use him in my pick 4 because of keeping the ticket more affordable, but he's the other one to consider certainly here. But Ann Arbor Eddie at 10-1 on the morning line, my win pick for the Gallant Bob. How about you?
Nice pick, and I left him off. I'll have to rethink my I do like O'Neill shipping. I didn't like the Jerkins race, and got a bump at the break and really had no chance. So if you throw that one out, he does look good in here. My pick was Cold Front. Either part of the entry. Cold Front is probably the more impressive with only 4 lifetime starts. And in the Jerkins, he was wide that day and didn't have much. Went out for 3-1, got beat by Practical Joke, who's probably going to wind up being one of the better sprinters in the country. I'm going to take Cold Front, and of course you get Petroff 2 for the price of 1. He was very impressive in that race at Saratoga at 7 furlongs. So the 1 horse is my win pick here. I'm also going to use the 4-horse Running Mate. You didn't mention him, and Larry Jones comes up with some long shots every once in a while. I love this horse's buyer progression. Last 2 races at Delaware, that's where Larry's from. And sometimes those horses come out of Delaware, get overlooked, and the track seems to be similar to Parx, and those horses run well. And sometimes those buyer numbers are a little bit low at Delaware, so this horse is really doing well right now. I'm also going to use the Excitations of 7 for Castellano rides him back, and I think he moves up off that last one. He's gotten beat by McCracken, Colonel Dark Temper, Wild Shot, so he's raced some of the best 3-year-olds in the country. So I'm going to use the 1-4, and I am going to use the 5-horse American Pastime. I like the fact that Bob Hess ships this horse across country out of those Del Mar races, so I think that's a good sign for the 5. So I'm going to use the 1-4, 5-7, I think 4 when we get to that.
10th race is the first of the 2 Grade 1s. This one's the cotillion for 3-year-old fillies. The fillies go a mile and a 16th. The boys will go a mile and an 8th. You've got the Oaks winner, Abel Tasman, in here, the Oaks third-place finisher in Salty. You've got Lockdown that came out of the Oaks, so that Oaks form's held up pretty well. Who did you go for?
Yeah, I was convinced that Salty was going to close the gap on Abel Tasman after the Oaks, and she just hadn't done it. I mean, she ran better in the Acorn, only got beat by a length, and then I think got better back in the CCA Oaks, and she gets beat by Abel Tasman. So I'm not going to take her over Abel Tasman again. I'm only going to use 2 horses here. That's Abel Tasman on top. No, not any big secret there at 8-5, but I'm going to use a horse underneath that I think has a chance to come with Abel Tasman when they start running down the leaders. That's Actress, the 3-horse, who won the Black-Eyed Susan at Pimlico on the day before Preakness, and closed from out of the clouds, was 19 lengths out of it, and got the job done. And that's her style, and I think that's going to bode well in here because you've got enough speed, I think, to set up both Abel Tasman and Actress with It Tis Well wanting the lead, Run and Go wanting the lead, and Thirst for the Cup wanting the lead. So I think a lot of the horses are going to go for the lead. That also sets it up well for Salty. So those 3 horses may run 1, 2, 3, just closing down the middle. But Abel Tasman's an awfully good potential single in here. But I'm also going to use Actress, the 3-horse.
I ended up going to Abel Tasman as well, but I'm going to not single her. Off the form, you certainly could, but it's a prep, I think, certainly for the Breeders' Cup race. So I don't know that she'll be fully cranked here, and because the track can be a little quirky, it'd be hard for me to single anybody unless it was somebody already shown form there. So Abel Tasman, Salty. I'm like you, have picked before, and I don't want to not use her and then have her beat me in a pick 4. So I'll definitely use her. Lockdown, I thought Mott's been heating up lately, his stable, and I think Lockdown's worth a look here. It Tis Well, Hollendorfer's always dangerous when he ships from the West Coast. So those are the 4 I'm going to use in there. I think you make a good point, though, on Actress. If I would expand the ticket, I think that would be the next one to add. I thought she was real impressive in her race at Pimlico on Preakness weekend. But to keep the ticket affordable, I will leave her out of this one and just box those other 4 in an exacta within the race itself. The 11th race is the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, and this is the 3-year-old boys going a mile and an 8th. And you got West Coast, I'm sure, will be a huge favorite off that 108 buyer figure in winning the Travers. IRAP was 3rd to him there and comes back here. I ended up going to Timeline. Part of it was just he was 5-1 in the morning line. He kind of fizzled in the Haskell, but he got a bad start and then rushed up. And I'm just going to forgive that race. Prior to that, he certainly looked like a horse that had Grade 1 caliber potential. And I think you're going to get a better price between the combination of his mediocre race in the Haskell and how well West Coast ran. So if West Coast regresses some off that and Timeline takes a step forward and let's say the winning number is somewhere around like a 102 or something, maybe Timeline could do that and win this. So I'm going to make him my win pick, but I'm going to use just him and West Coast in the last leg of my pick 4. I think probably the next one I'd include would be IRAP, the Bluegrass winner, but just to keep the ticket affordable, I'm going to use those 2. So Timeline and West Coast for me are the 2 I'm going to use on my pick 4 ticket. In the race, I'm going to take Timeline and key him in exactas with West Coast, IRAP, and Outplay intrigues me just a little bit for Pletcher, so I'll include him, not in the pick 4, but just in an exacta with Timeline in this race. Who do you like in the Pennsylvania Derby?
I sure hope you're right, because if you remember, I've got Timeline in a future book for the Breeders' Cup at $30 at 75-1. So
Ooh.
If you're right, Timeline may go to the Breeders' Cup. I don't think he's going to beat Arrogant out there and Gun Runner, but at least he'll have a shot. I'm going to go with Timeline using it in the pick 4, but West Coast is my top pick. I think if he repeats that Haskell try, they're all running for second. He's gotten that good over the period of the years, and I think if IRAP were to win this, you can make a case for him for 3-year-old of the year. I mean, who else is going to get it? IRAP's got the Bluegrass, which is a grade 2, but really everybody considers a grade 1. The Ohio Derby, the Indiana Derby, and a third in the Travers. And if they win the grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, you can make a case for him for Horse of the Year. You can also make a case for West Coast if he wins, if he backs up the Travers with this one. So it's a big race. West Coast and Timeline maybe because of the price, but West Coast and IRAP certainly the big 4.
All right, pick 4. Who do you got?
Okay, got pick 4 in the first leg. I've got 4 horses: Donegal Moon, the 2, Matt King Cole, the 4, Mr. Jordan, the 7, and the 9 horse Just Call Kenny. So 4 horses there. And I've got 1, 4, 5, 7, and 9 with the entry, Running Mate, the 4, American Pastime, the 5, and Excitations, the 7. Sticking with 2 horses, the 3 and the 9, Actress and Abel Tasman in the 10th race, the Cotillion, and then going 1, 4, 5, 3 deep in the last race on the Pennsylvania Derby, and that's with Timeline, West Coast, and IRAP. So 4 by 4 by 2 by 3.
My ticket's a little heavier. It's $60. I ended up going 5 deep in that first leg, all the ones I mentioned in the 8th. In the 9th, I'm using Ann Arbor Eddie, the 1-1A entry, and then also Excitation. So 3 horses there. I'm using 4 in the Cotillion, and all the ones I mentioned. And then in the 11th, I'm just using Timeline and West Coast. So 5 by 3 by 4 by 2. That's $60 for 50 cents. It's a really nice card. I think the favorites could be, you could be vulnerable. I think there's a shot you could beat them. So I think it's pick 4 that could pay decently. Best of luck with it. Keep your accounts fully funded. When you are watching a lot of college football and can't get to the track, you can always play via Keeneland Select. Churchill Downs has a nice stake for 3-year-old fillies on Saturday as well. So best of luck with your wagers for this Saturday, September 23rd. This is the End the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com.